I had a splendid voice. In fact, I'd sing in opera if they'd give me my choice. I wrote to Oscar Hammerstein that I would be his star. He said, come down and sing for me, and I'll see how good you are. And I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. No, I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. I sang the wise old owl, and he left the room at once. So I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months.
Welcome to episode 12, the final episode in series 2. In this episode, I talked to criminologist Ciaran McConnell, whose website is called Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. For the most part, Ireland is a safe country, yet from 1987 to 2003, something happened on the island that saw a dozen women vanish without trace from their homes or the side of the road. In some cases, a body was recovered, but most of them were never found. The commonality between the cases is that all the women at one point were missing, and only by a stroke of luck that several of them were found. Ciaran McConnell has set up Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, which is a website and blog dedicated to correlating all the information and details of the cases of the individual women in one place. Over the course of the episode, Ciaran defines what the term Ireland's Vanishing Triangle means, and he takes us through it, case by case, to their present day status. You can find out more information on these cases by clicking on the link to Ireland's Vanishing Triangle below. If you have any information pertaining to the whereabouts of any of the missing women included on this podcast, or any missing person from Ireland, then please contact the Garda Confidential line on 1800 666 111. Finally, I must include a warning that the content in this episode some listeners may find distressing. Listener caution is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Ciaran McConnell from Ireland's Vanishing Triangle.
Okay, so Ciaran, what's the best way to describe what it is that you do, or what it is that you're best known for to the general public?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Vinny. Interesting question to start with. I suppose about 5 or 6 years ago, I began researching a series of cases known as Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. And while I was researching, the thing that kind of annoyed me, there was no sort of central website with all the information in one place, and you'd have to keep going to old articles and Wikipedia and all this type of stuff. So I basically started putting it all together on my own computer through Word documents and stuff like this. And then I just said, why not I just put this stuff online? So I started putting it online, and took me about 4 or 5 months to put it all together. And over about a period of 4 years, it's actually done quite well. And I think it's up to about 15,000 views now. And I made a podcast. It's quite amateurish, but I did it myself. And that kind of got a bit of success as well. So I suppose they will be the things I'd be most well known for, so to speak.
What was the research for?
Just to see, well, I'm actually I studied criminology and law, so I'd kind of have I suppose a academic interest in these type of things. So it's just something I'd always interested in, would be cold cases, particularly from America and stuff. So, but the fact I'm Irish, I decided to look into this one, and it's the one I've looked into the most, and it just kept going. It's there's no real answers in it, so you just can kind of keep going and going with the research.
Can you remember the first cold case that got your attention? So I can tell you mine straight away. Back in the mid-90s, there was a TV series called Thou Shalt Not Kill.
I remember it well.
You remember it well. So you'll remember this episode, and it was the story of basically the play and the film The Field is based upon it.
Oh yeah.
The story of Mossy Moore and Dan Foley. Although there is a suspect in that, it is largely, I suppose, considered a cold case. That will be the one that I always remember to this day. I remember my own grandmother talking about it. But can you remember that first case that really grabbed your attention, and that you kind of, even now I look at that particular case and I kind of go, God, what happened?
Yeah, and the fact it's so historic, it kind of adds to the mystery. It's like Thou Shalt Not Kill. It. A lot of the show was in black and white and all. It was really
Yeah.
good. I suppose for me, the first kind of case I ever got in that got me interested in is actually kind of not personal, so to speak, but my neighbor across the street from me actually shot his son dead while he was asleep. Yeah, I think that was in 1994. It would have been. So I was only 8 years of age, so I remember coming back from school and there was like, the whole forensic setup and cops and reporters and Professor Harbison. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember looking out my window and seeing him come in with his little briefcase and
Jeez.
all that stuff. And then I actually, even though I was so young, I remember reading up on the court case and all, like, and following it. And then a few years later, I started watching a TV show called The FBI Files.
Oh yes,
Brilliant show.
yes.
Brilliant show. It's a bit propaganda, but very good. And that kind of got me hooked. And then I started researching American cases like the Long Island serial killer and all, like, loads of them. And then there's a lot of obscure cases, like older ones. Like there's a guy I think it was in the 1920s, H. Holmes in Chicago. It's one of the most disturbing cases you'll ever read into. Like, but yeah, so, and then the internet, you just keep finding so many more cases.
So, how did you end up saying you said you studied law and criminology? How did you come to that decision? Is that something that just kind of was naturally very early on? You said, "Oh, well, this is where I'm going," or was it something that kind of spur of the moment?
The thing that really interested me would be the criminal profiling. I used to follow a FBI guy called John Douglas. He basically invented criminal profiling, and it fascinated me. I remember he worked on a case out of Alaska, a guy called Robert Hansen, and a horrible person. Like, he'd kidnap women in Anchorage and fly them out on his plane in the wilderness in Alaska, and basically release the person and then start hunting them. Like, a fairly disturbing case. Like, but the Alaskan police had no idea who it was, and they contacted John Douglas, and the profile he gave on the guy was basically like within a T. Like, he said, this person will have a speech impediment. And they were like, how do you know that? And he's like, just trust me, they will. And when they caught the guy, he ended up having a speech impediment and his own business and all this. Like, he just knew that by the crime scenes. He was able to say he had to have his own business, because how else would he have the time to take people out like this and all? Like, so just fascinated me that you could like diagnose a stranger's personality and from that. Like, so that kind of got me into it. And then in Ireland, it was actually, when I went to college, it was quite difficult to find the criminology course. So that's why I ended up doing law, which was with criminal justice, with an element of criminology to it. But there wasn't really very much. So I ended up then, after college, actually studying criminology, like, in my own time. So I ended up getting a diploma in that. Like, so that would be kind of where my professional interest would come from.
So you were saying how, like, I mean, like a lot of people, I know I'm the same, definitely, with my influences and stuff like that, and where I source a lot of what, like, particularly music and scripts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You were very much drawn to the American side of it. What was it that brought you to what we're going to talk about now over the next couple of minutes? The Irish cases. What was it that's brought your attention?
I always had obviously, like, one of my favorite shows growing up would have been Crime Line. So yeah. So I remember the Jojo Dullard case. That would be one of the first ones I remember. I think I remember hearing about the Annie McCarrick one, but I was probably a bit young. So, like, it was such a frightening case, and the way they laid it out on Crime Line, they really they don't whitewash it, so to speak, or whatever. So that, like, fascinated me, and then I started following it, and then the Deirdre Jacob case came about, and then as I got older, I started reading books about it. I think the first book I read it was by Ciaran McConnell. I think she's on I'm Time now. Yeah, she has a great book called Where Nobody Can Hear You Scream. It's a really great title, and really brilliant. So I read that, and then I think Alan Bailey, he's a retired detective, brought out a book in 2014. So I was just always constantly following up. And then when you read the books and stuff, you start looking into older cases that, like Antoinette Smith from 1987 and stuff like that. So you just kind of keep going.
And that brings us to what how I came across your work, Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. That was I came across your work via Radio Espile with Mick Rooney.
Oh, Mick
And that
Rooney,
was
yeah.
Mick Rooney, yeah, who previous guest on the podcast.
Oh,
And
he really is. So, a shout out to Mick, like, because my God, the detail he goes into,
oh,
like,
I
and
know,
if you,
yeah, yeah,
if,
yeah. And this is the reason why I had him on, was because I've never heard in all the years I've followed a lot of these cases. I've never seen the detail into the timeline the way he does it.
no,
You
there's
know,
nothing
not,
left. Like,
nothing. Yeah,
there's all documentaries, podcasts, all these many things, but like every single thing that is known is in them videos with Mick, like
yeah,
everything, like.
yeah.
um,
That's and absolutely fascinating. And I'm kind of looking more of this, please. I want to see more of this, and that's how I
yeah,
came across Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. Your website. You were a guest on one of the shows. I
yeah.
believe I can't remember which episode it was, but so tell us. No, we didn't go into detail with Mick on this one. We talked about a host of different things, but
Yeah,
for
he
this,
knows loads of cases, Mick. Yeah,
yeah. But I said I'd save this one for your episode. So can
oh,
you tell
thanks.
us more about Ireland's Vanishing Triangle? Where does the name come from, and what does it mean?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I think the name was first coined, suppose, by the media. I think probably around the mid 90s to the late 90s. It might actually be I'm not 100% on this, but I think it was a journalist called Geraldine Nyland that actually came up with the term. But it's only that's all it is, really. It's a good term, but that's all. It's just a term, like, because it has no reference to the cases, and it's got nothing to do with geographical profiling or anything like that. It's just basically when you put the map, say, you put the dots on the map of the victims, it makes a triangle, and that's where the name came from. But kind of like in these cases, like, unfortunately, the name somewhat matters in the sense that it will draw people's attention. Like, a good example I know is I don't know if you know the Golden State Killer
Yeah, yeah,
case.
yeah, yeah. The cop. Yeah,
That's another one now. I followed that for years, and I think he started back in the mid 70s, and he wasn't caught until 2018. But like in the 70s, the media and the cops or whatever, they gave him all these bizarre names. Like, one of them was the East Area Rapist, then the original Night Stalker, the Diamond Knot Killer, and then eventually they came up with the strangest one, Earons, which was an acronym. Like, yeah, so none of this caught on or whatever, but Michelle McNamara, she'd be a crime journalist from I think she's from New York, and she started looking into the case, and she gave the name the Golden State Killer. And then there's documentaries, podcasts, the whole lot. Like, so the case then went, mainstream, so to speak. But it was only that she was actually able to give it a name. Like, and this guy now, he'd like killed 15 women and broken into another 50 odd women's houses and assaulted them, and had never been caught. Like, it was over about a 10-year time frame. Like, and they eventually caught the guy. He was still alive, living in Sacramento. But, like, in the case that got like very little publicity before she put the name on it. So, like, in a sense, that's why the name's important. But, like, deep down, everybody knows, I suppose, all cold cases deserve equal attention. But I suppose human nature gets in the way of
right.
moral objectivity, I suppose, and it's unfortunate, but it's the way. So it's just a title, really. That's all it is.
Yeah. So with Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, can you take us from the beginning right up to where it ends? So what was the first, I suppose, case that's loosely associated with it, and then if you can take us
Yeah,
through them.
I would say the first case that I would think would be related, and it was actually included in Operation Trace. Now, not at the start, but it was one of the cases they looked into. Would be the Antoinette Smith case from 1987. Yeah, that would be a kind of the starting point, I would think, especially just with the location and so on. But see, the thing is, on my website, I decided to include like 12 cases from, say, 1987 to 2003. But the thing is, to be honest, like, I've studied the cases for a long time, And it's somewhat a case of the more you know, the less you know, in a sense. Yeah, because like out of the 12 cases, like 5 of them have like clear suspects, and there has been arrests, but obviously no convictions because there's no bodies. And see, the thing is, and you don't want to be disrespectful to any of the 5 victims of the cases with suspects, but unfortunately, that somewhat muddied the waters. And it's a big if, but if there ever was a serial killer, the cases with the suspects somewhat, I suppose, helped them hide. And that really is a dreadful set of circumstances, like that someone so horrible potentially could benefit from this, like, but in a sense, like, that could be true, like. And so I suppose if you say, like, if you look at I think it would be a good idea to say, go briefly through the 5 cases with suspects, if that would be okay.
Yeah, go, yeah.
Yeah, so say, like, if you look at the cases of, say, Fiona Pender, August 1996, Ciara Breen, February 97, and Fiona Sinnott, 98, like, the Gardaí believe that they were all killed by men known to them. And according to the guards, and they've always said there's only one suspect in each of these cases, but there's no convictions yet. And, like, they haven't found, like, unfortunately, none of the bodies have been found, so there's no convictions. But that's what the guards say, that there's just one suspect in each one of them cases, and that's what they've maintained the whole time. So then, say, if you look, say, at the case of Marie Kilmartin, now her body was actually found. It was found in bogland in the North County Laois, in a place I think known as Mount Mellick. Now that would have been in the summer of '94. She was last seen going into her house actually in Portlaoise around late December in '93 after a work party. So now soon after her body was found, 2 men were arrested but not charged. And now again in 2008, 2 men and a woman were arrested, but again they weren't charged. Now I'm not sure if this was the 2 men arrested in the first place, but it is said that some of the people arrested do remain suspects in the case, and some of them were known to Marie. So, and then the final one will be in the Imelda Keenan case. This really is it's a heartbreaking case, like, because there's so little to go on. And it's hard to really know even what day Imelda vanished on. So most likely she probably vanished sometime around Christmas 1993. But there'd be a few issues now with witness accounts concerning, amongst other things, like dates and times. And it's most likely the answers to this case lie in Waterford, where Imelda lived, and with a certain individual that still lives in Waterford. That would be most likely now with that case. Now, so even though, like, some of these cases, they're like the 5 cases, some of them are almost 30 years old. They will be like this Christmas. The relatives have done an excellent job in keeping the cases out there and keeping the pressure on the authorities and just keeping it out there in the news cycle. Like, so say, like, in the Fiona Pender case, unfortunately now both her parents are dead, but I know her brother, John Pender, he's constantly getting stuff in the paper and doing great work to keep the case out there. And say, in the Ciara Breen case, sadly now her mother's died, and actually the suspect in the case, he died in Garda custody. I think it was 2017 or something. So I don't know if there'll be any conclusions with that case, but I'm very sad. Then Marie Kilmartin, her daughter Anya, doing great work. She's stuff out there in the paper. She has a Twitter account and all that, and she's keeping the pressure on really to get it solved. So hopefully one day, because the fact they found the body, Marie's body, you would hope there'd be something that they, in time, like, that they can go on. And say in the Imelda Keenan case, I know her 2 brothers, one of them, Ned, they constantly were fighting for justice. They were on Joe Duffy, Crime Line, getting the cases into documentaries and all that. And, like, they're still doing it to this day. And currently now her niece, Gina, is doing great work. She has a Facebook group, constantly putting stuff out there. She's put the pressure on the guards, and I think she's actually met with the guards a few times. So if the case is to be solved, it'll be down to people like Gina, like, and the families. They're just relentless, and you can apply that to all the cases, actually. Like, the families are just, I don't know how, like, they're just brilliant. Like, the type of people actually you would want investigating crimes.
Yes, yes, yeah. So they're the five that have a suspect. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh, those then that don't have a suspect, and this is where I suppose a lot of the intrigue for the public comes in. Um,
100%. Yeah,
this elusive person or persons that have. I'm trying to watch my words. Who have taken these women, I suppose
yeah.
is the best way to put that without sounding too hard about it. Can you take us through
Absolutely. Yeah.
those cases then?
No, you see, you don't want to be cold or dismissive to the other five cases. Like, it's kind of a harsh thing to do. Like, it's hard to even word how you would say such a thing. But so say you take away them five cases out of 12, that would leave you with seven cases. But the one thing I would just keep in mind before going through the other seven cases now, just back to the other five cases, all the individuals that are suspects in these cases are considered by the Gardaí capable of killing a woman and in some cases hiding their body for decades. So I would keep that in mind. There's five men that are within the country or jurisdiction that are potentially capable of such a crime. So
They've done it
not
before,
to
so
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
they can
You
do it
know,
again. Yeah, exactly.
it's something I always kind of thought to keep in mind, like when I was researching the cases, like
Yeah.
so. I suppose then the first case, there's no real clear suspect or motive even would be the Antoinette Smith case from 1987. She went to the David Bowie concert in Slane Castle on Saturday night, the 11th of July. Went with one of her friends. She came back to town, I don't know, about 11 o'clock or something like that. Went to a pub and then went to La Mirage nightclub. I think it's now closed. And left there at about basically 2:30 in the morning with two other friends. Then the friend she went to the concert with decided to go home. She wanted to stay out. The friend gave her a key to her house so she could spend the night there. And she stayed out then with the other two friends for a bit of time. They went home at about 3, and then she was last seen by the two friends walking towards O'Connell Bridge, carrying a black Texaco bag, wearing a David Bowie t-shirts, and that was the last sighting of her. Her husband, her ex-husband, actually, Carl, reported her missing about I think the next day or something. And shockingly and now, unfortunately, her body was found around Easter of 1988. It would have been April, by a young family they were out for a walk in Glendew Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And she was found basically partially buried in a bog. And I think Professor Harbison concluded that she most likely died through strangulation, as there was no trauma. And there was two plastic bags placed around her head, with the bag, the underneath bag knotted around her neck.
So her body has been recovered. However, no one has been charged with this.
No, and to be honest, I from what I know and from what Nick knows, there was no arrests made. There was actually there was two guys out in Rathfarnham. They lived near the Yellow House pub.
Yeah.
I think they were questioned or something, but that's about it. And no, and then just to say one thing and on this case, and then Mick cleared it up, and it's just to mention that her ex-husband Carl is rightfully not considered a suspect in this case.
Yeah.
There's just no way. Like, the guy was at home minding his kids, and he reported her missing the next day. It's just I know I see a few people on Reddit and these type of things trying to state the obvious, go down the obvious line, but there's just no way.
There's no way.
She went out in town at 3 a.m, 1987, no phones or mobile phones or anything so.
Yeah, it was like back then. It was like the Stone Age compared to today. Communication wise, it wasn't there, was it? It wasn't there.
So there's just so that you'd have to say likely a stranger or something, but a horrible case because you had two young kids and it's 36 years and not solved at all. So
what about Antoinette Smith's case bears a similar resemblance though to another case from around that time as well, does it not? There was one.
Yeah, the next case I suppose would be the Patricia Doherty case. She'd actually, just to mention, Antoinette Smith, she was from Crumlin, but she was living in Clondalkin when she went missing. And so the next case will be Patricia Doherty. She was a mother of two from Tala. She was aged 29. So on the 21st of December, she went out for the day around Tala Christmas shopping. I think she was in the square, and then she went back to where she lived in Old Bawn, and she went back home about 9 o'clock. But she went back out shortly after. I think it was to get more stuff for her kids or something, and never came home. There was like somebody seen her. I think it was a neighbor seen her walking towards the shopping center, and then somebody who didn't know her saw somebody fitting her description getting into a car outside the shopping center at about 9:15. So then she was reported missing on Christmas Day, and obviously there's a few media campaigns, but nothing. And then I think on the 21st of June 92, there was a guy out cutting turf in a place in the Dublin Wicklow Mountains named Glass Mucky Breaks. Strange name.
Mm-hmm.
And he found her body in a bog as well. It was about a mile from where Antoinette Smith was found. And she was killed through strangulation, most likely, Professor Harbison gave. And like, very little known in the public anyway on this case. Like, I don't think there's ever been any arrests, and just very little about it. Like, there's obviously a lot of articles at the time. I think actually the first ever episode of Crime Line covered this case, and you don't really hear too much about it. But
remind me again, what was the time frame from, say, the Antoinette Smith case to the Patricia Doherty case? Was there a year or two, was it?
No, well, Antoinette Smith went missing in the summer of '87, and Patricia Doherty went missing in the December of '91. So 4 years.
4 years, okay. And
4 years in between.
They're found literally. They were found a mile apart, and if Harbison is right about what they're saying, it's the same method of death, really, isn't it?
Asphyxiation. Now, I suppose like that could kind of mean a few things. It doesn't necessarily mean like somebody was manually strangled. It just means that their hair was cut off. So because when you look at the bags on Antoinette Smith's head, I don't think he was able to determine if they were placed on her when she was alive or dead. Mm-hmm. Disturbing as that is, so I don't think he could fully determine that one. So
what are the other? What's the next case?
The next case I would on the timeline would be it'd actually be probably one of Ireland's most famous missing person cases. The Annie McCarrick case.
Okay.
Yeah. So she went missing on it was a Friday, the 26th of March, 93. Now, there's a lot of because this case is so well known, there's a lot of reporting and speculation or so. But it seems that basically in the morning she left her apartment at about say just before 11 o'clock, went to the shops, went to the bank. You see the CCTV of her in the bank, you see a lot on documentaries. So she went there, and then she came home at about roughly 3 o'clock, then left her apartment again very soon after, like 3:10 or something, got a bus to Ranelagh, and then got the 44 bus, it seems, to Enniskerry. Now, there was a woman that she worked with, I think Emer O'Grady was her name, that she was queuing for the same bus, and she said she'd seen Annie get on the bus. Now, they didn't talk on the bus, but obviously the fact that she worked with her, the guards took the sighting as positive, Yeah. So, I think she got off in Milltown or something. That would have been before Enniskerry. So, and then, you can somewhat assume that she made it to Enniskerry because she told two of her friends earlier on the phone that she wanted to go to Enniskerry to go hiking that day.
Yeah.
And then I think there was a PI hired by her family, Brian McCarthy. He was able to establish kind of a lead that a woman who worked in a cafe called Poppy's was convinced that she'd seen Annie McCarrick with a man. He bought her cake or something in the cafe around 5 o'clock that day, and would kind of match up with the timeline. But unfortunately, this woman, I don't know, I think she was probably about 60s at the time in 93, and the guards only came back in like 2019 to ask her for a statement, but unfortunately the woman had died, so that one kind of goes that then, doesn't it, if the witness is dead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so and there was another unconfirmed sighting of a woman matching Annie's description in the post office in Enniskerry now that's been disputed, so but they're kind of around the same time. But that's then where she went then is like, really hard to tell.
Yeah, so Annie McCarrick, the first one and probably the most famous of them was because number one, she was an American student, or wasn't
Yeah,
she? She was
yeah,
an American national living in Ireland.
yeah,
But it was the first time a woman had disappeared but had not been found.
yeah.
Whereas previously the women had disappeared, but their bodies had been recovered at a later date. So this was the first of what I suppose what is of the vanishing triangle in the sense they've never been recovered.
In the literal sense, yeah, that they've never been recovered, yeah. Because like I suppose though, if you were to look at the case like in a wholly, I suppose you would have to include cases where bodies are found. There's no reason, like, from I suppose a professional point of view or whatever, to eliminate cases where bodies are found. But I know what you mean. It's the first kind of, because when you hear Vanishing Triangle and you read the stories, you associate with people like women that have gone missing that have never been found. You know, yeah. So that's why I always go back to it. It's just a name.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's and plus two, that's been updated officially as of this year to
the murder
murder
inquiry.
inquiry.
Yeah, the Annie McCarrick case, because um, I think it seems like they've developed a suspect in that case that was known to her. So I suppose like one thing I always found bizarre, like when I researched Annie's case, right? So when she went to the shop, she was buying ingredients to make apple tarts because she sold them at some cafe where she worked, Cafe Java, I think it was called. And so she bought the groceries. Now, Sandymount and her apartment are like a 2-minute walk. Like she lived right beside Sandymount Village, right where the shops were. And so she bought these ingredients at 11, but she didn't. And then she went to the bank to change the address on her account. So say that took half an hour. So from say 11:30 in the morning till 3. I wonder what, that's a big, massive gap now in her day that's unaccounted for. And she had the groceries with her the whole time and she never dropped them home. And then when her housemates came back to the apartment on the Monday, or I think it was the Sunday, the ingredients and the groceries were just left out on the table. She never put them away. And they said, like, our friends and all were saying that was very strange for her, like, that she would have, why would she have done this? Like, because I'm carrying the bag. So you'd wonder what was going on there for the rest of the afternoon from, say, 11:30 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
That's what I was kind of getting at. I wonder, is there something there the guards have uncovered that would, like, make them think that it might be someone known to her, or because they said they're focusing on the Sandymount area and a suspect that lived in the Sandymount area at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it's March that would have been, so you haven't really heard much since then.
Yeah. There's been a lot of leads or speculation. I don't know what you want to call it, to be honest with you, with that particular case over the years, from the point of view that I remember 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more, there was talk of IRA involvement. At one particular point, there was a man
I
who,
think that was a strange one.
Yeah.
And then obviously, then the obvious Larry Murphy's been linked to the case, of course, like as well. So obviously, that really should be, because I think like a doorman from Johnny Fox's came forward saying that he's seen Annie, and to this day he's convinced. But the photo fit or the sketch he gave of the guy looks a bit like someone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That just leads to more speculation.
Speculation. Yeah. Okay. Then Annie McCarrick. That brings us to, I presume, then that's 1995. Is it Judge O'Donovan?
93 was no. Actually, the next case I would always go to in the series will be it's a very less well known case. Will be the case of Eva Brennan.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So she went missing in July of 93, which would be just about 4 months after Annie McCarrick went missing, and she lived in South Dublin, the same as where Annie lived. Annie lived in Sandymount. Eva lived in Rathgar, not far from each other. And so basically, yeah, she was 39 years of age. On a Sunday afternoon, I'll just get the exact date for you. Sorry, it will be the 25th of July, 93. She went to mass in the morning in St. Joseph's Church in Terenure. Then after that, she went to her parents' house in Rathgar for a Sunday lunch. And I don't know, she got in a small argument with some of her siblings over what they were having for dinner, like, you know, the type of stuff families get into all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after this, she decided to leave the house and hasn't been seen since. Absolutely bizarre case. So basically, they think now it's presumed that she did get back to her apartment because the coat she was wearing in her parents' house that day was hanging on a chair in her apartment in at Madison House, Rathgar, where she lived. And so, but the case is just gets very it's sad because the case gets very little coverage. Like, I remember the Sky documentary that was on recently, not a mention of it. Like, and here you have a woman that went missing, what, 4 months after Annie McCarrick lived in an apartment in South Dublin. Now, I'm not like saying the cases are linked, but you know, you would hope it would compel a bigger response. Like, and
it is strange that in Dublin at that particular time, that two women would just drop off the face of the earth. You know,
yeah,
and particularly after the certainly after the high profile, because I do remember the McCarrick case. The ins and outs of it, I do remember that was very, very high profile in the media,
pretty high profile,
and
yeah.
has always been, really, to be honest with you. It's never dropped. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. There's a lady less than 5 months later also just disappeared, and nearly similar circumstances. Went back to their apartment, bang, gone, never seen again.
I was really like, it was really difficult for the family to kind of get the guards to like look into it. At the start, they were like suggested to the family that like it may be suicide. Now, like, in fairness, like Eva's family, like Eva did suffer from depression, and her family like told the guards because they didn't want the guards to think they were like withholding information from them or whatever, which is like the right thing to do, of course. And so it was suggested that she committed suicide, but like there were a few obvious questions there, like that she was really devoted as a Catholic. She never left a suicide note, and the most obvious question: where did she?
Yeah,
She killed her.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't add up, really, does it? It's in that sense. It's so
No,
Ava Brennan was 1993.
yeah,
I vaguely remember that case, actually. I know, I remember the picture. The occasional appeal,
yeah.
but that's one that kind of, again, like you said,
The picture she's smoking a cigarette would be the
cigarette.
one that would kind
Yeah,
of,
that's the
yeah.
one
You'd see
I
it
do remember.
on the yeah. You'd see it
Um,
around the anniversaries now. And like, in fairness, her father, Mr. Davy Brennan, I think he was something associated with Fianna Fáil anyway, and he actually had to go all the way to Albert Reynolds, who got the guards to finally investigate the case. Like, but yeah, there was nothing to be. They couldn't find that, and I think the family hired a PI as well, and no answers at all. Like, yeah,
it's incredible.
so sad case, yeah. So a case that really you'd want to see get more publicity, like, you know.
Yeah. So that takes us then to
Would take us
1995.
to the 95, and that would be Jojo Dullard, which
Okay.
again would be probably not equally as well known, I suppose, as the Annie McCarrick case, and that's down to her sister and Mary Phelan. Like, she just done such an excellent job of getting the case out there, like, and brilliant work. Like, so shout out to Mary. And I think Kathleen, her other sister, now is still working ahead, is working away, like, great stuff. But yeah, Jojo, she was only 22 years of age. She was went up to Dublin. I think she had an errand to do. She'd moved back down to Kilkenny from Dublin. Went out in Dublin for the day. She was out in, I think, Brussels, and missed her bus home, basically. So she managed to get a bus. She lived in Kilkenny, so that's where she was trying to get to. And so her bus had long gone or whatever. She got a bus to Nace, and then she had to hitchhike. So she hitchhiked to somewhere else in Kildare, I'm not sure, but got picked up there again by another person. I think an elderly guy picked her up, and he thought, like, he warned her about hitchhiking and all, which is kind of a tragic part of the case. And so he dropped her, I think, to Moon, and then she rang her friend from the payphone in Moon, I think about 11:45 at night. And as she was talking to her friend Mary Cullinan, a car pulled up, and she stuck out her thumb or whatever, and came back to the phone, told her friend she'd gotten a lift and that she'd see her soon, and that was it, unfortunately. And I know like the Jojo case is most people like would say, oh, Moon, and there's a plaque there for a moon, but there was I think about 5 witness reports from a nearby village called Castle Dermot at about a bit after midnight that night. Like a woman's fitting Jojo's description was seen walking through the town, kind of in the direction of Kilkenny, where she would have to go. But obviously, none of the people knew her, so it couldn't be confirmed. But it matched the timeline with her getting driven from Moon to Castle Dermot. Yeah.
Okay, that's
But I
something
think,
I wouldn't have been as aware of. I would have
yeah,
always heard that bang, she got in the car, never seen again. I wasn't aware that there was possibly sightings
yeah,
of her a couple of minutes later in Castle Dermot. Okay, never knew that.
yeah, that's it. And then there potentially a further sighting, but now there's a problem with this one about I think it was a year after she went missing. And now, like, you know yourself, everybody in Ireland had heard of the case. So a year after a taxi man from Waterford came forward to Gardaí saying on the night that Jojo disappeared that he was driving through Kilmacow, and he seen a taxi pull, or sorry, he seen a red car pull up on the hard shoulder. A guy there outside the car taking a piss, and as he drove by, a woman ran out of the car with no shoes on and ran, along the hard shoulder. And then another guy jumped out of the car, grabbed her by the waist, dragged her back into the car. The guy who was originally there urinating back into the car, and the car drove off. But he didn't come forward for a year. Like,
Yeah.
so it was just too long to get witness statements or forensics or anything, so, but and the timeline again matched, the distance from Moon to Kilmacow.
I remember
Now,
that
why it took the
development.
person a year,
I
yeah,
remember that
a
development
year,
coming out in 1996, actually, yeah, and everyone waiting with bated breath to see where this was going to bring us next. It was the whole country was enraptured as to what happened to this girl. I vividly remember that because this is the case that I think for a lot of people, myself included, that we realize there's something seriously wrong somewhere on the
yeah,
island. Um, Annie McCarrick had been a big profile case. Ava Brennan had slipped under the radar, but when
yeah,
this young girl, 20, 21 years of age, just disappeared, and everyone kind of thought, well, she's gone to England or whatever, she'll be back or at the time.
yeah.
But as the weeks went by, everyone realized there's
No,
something not right here,
yeah.
and
She's
the,
close to her family and all, and she was starting a new job down in Callan and Kilkenny, so it was
yeah,
just,
it was completely out of character. And what we know now, but I mean, and plus two, kind of, we have to stress back then, back in the 90s, we're talking nearly 30 years ago, we did not have the access to
no,
information or even the access to say information of any kind, really, to help us understand this. We had a very,
no,
very primitive,
yeah.
primitive working knowledge of all this. All of us, like, I mean, back then.
Well, in
But
fairness to the guards, in fairness to the guards, I know we were saying like Jojo has a settled life and a job and she's not going to run away, but the guards can't, they have to go to the first thing, and that would be, oh, did this person run away? Because that's probably
yeah,
90% of missing person cases that are reported that end
yeah.
up like that, so they have to do that, but yeah, it was a difficult case though, because I think the guards were kind of slow to act as well. I think they have said they regretted that. So, because
Yeah,
the unfortunate thing about the missing person cases is a lot of the cases are just somebody got in an argument or whatever, wanted to go away for a few days. But the vital thing in these cases, when the person doesn't get found, is the first kind of 48 hours.
mhm.
Then, with witness statements and so on. So it's a very kind of a rock and a hard place for the guards, you'd imagine, these cases.
Okay. And to your knowledge, has there ever been a suspect in
In
this
the
case?
judge, yeah, there's been arrests made, and I think there was people down in Waterford that were in the vicinity of Moon that night that were considered suspects. And then obviously there was a guy who lived in a village close to it that was considered a suspect at the time. I don't know if you read the story that a private detective hired by the Dullard family went on this guy's land a few days after Jojo disappeared. He was for a golf club, and he just said the individual was quite disheveled and had a large fresh wound underneath one of their eyes. Like, so, but now this person's identity has never came to light, and they've never been arrested by the guards, or I don't think their land has been searched or anything. So, and then I suppose the obvious one is Larry Murphy, that he's considered a suspect because he lived in Bolton Glass, which is like very near to Moon and Castle Dermot. So
okay, so there are suspects within it. Okay, it's not just one, because I mean the usual suspect always comes up in that one due to the proximity of where he lived and where she disappeared from.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us then, I'm guessing, then to who?
Would be yeah, exactly. That would be July 1998. I think it was a Tuesday, the 28th. Yeah, tragic case. She was only 18. She just came back. She moved to London to study to be a school teacher in Twickenham, I think it is.
Yeah, Twickenham. Yeah,
and she's back for the summer or whatever. So one day she went. She lived in a place called she lived in a place just outside Newbridge. So I think it was about a 30-minute walk into Newbridge. So she walked into Newbridge, visited her grandmother's shop on the way, went to the post office. I think she spoke to a friend or something. Then about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, walked back home. She was now the Barrettstown Road she would have taken home. I think back then it was quite kind of rural, to be a few houses and all that type of stuff. But like now it's really built up. But back then there wouldn't have really been a footpath around. It would have been kind of a country lane, or country kind of, side path. And now she was seen though by lots of neighbours. Even said hello to some fella that she knew up on his roof. He was fixing his roof, and that was just before her house. And then I think another neighbour seen her literally across the road from her house, and then vanished.
She went to town. She came home. She disappeared.
Outside her front door. Now, it's not quite like the house would kind of have a gate, and then there'd be like a bit of a good driveway up to the bungalow where she lived. Like, so it wouldn't be like, like a little urban gate like that. But yeah, basically at her front gate, absolutely shocking. Like,
and so this was from my memory of it as well, because I do remember this. Now this comes 3 years after Jojo Dullard. Automatically the guards go into search mode. There's no doubt about this. This is where it becomes very different. The guards literally, as soon as they find out Deirdre Jacobs gone missing, bang, they go immediately into search code.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? Is there a reason for that, or is it how now that we're better, I suppose, trained?
Yeah, because I think I'm not sure. They did end up talking to the FBI about these cases. Now, I'm not sure if this was after the Deirdre Jacob case or before, but they were definitely, ready for this. And obviously they look at the pattern between, like, say, Annie McCarrick, Jojo Dullard, and maybe other cases. So they're ready for this. So, I think the parents contacted the guards that evening, probably around 6 o'clock or something like that. And that night they were out with helicopter searching the whole lot, but unfortunately they couldn't find Deirdre anywhere. Terrible case, and I know there's we all know the main suspect in this case, and I think the guards even sent a file to the DPP on him because he was in the Newbridge area at the time, in Kildare. He was working and all that, and he did, the story about the prisoner that came forward.
Yeah.
Him and Larry Murphy were in their cell or whatever, taking ecstasy and drinking that night, and basically told him quite a disturbing story that he pulled into the side of the road, seen Deirdre Jacob, showed her a map, dragged her into his car, and said that basically she fought so much that he had to kill her and then hide her body quickly. And horrible story. But the reason why I mention it is that his story somewhat ties up with the fact the guards were out searching everywhere that night and didn't find anything. So it's grim, like. But that's
Yes.
obviously that's for speculation, though. Ultimately.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of have a rule of thumb when prisoners start talking to the cops, I generally kind of take it with a pinch of salt. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it could, quite frankly, certainly with prisoners, there's a reason why they're in prison. It's not because they're
exactly.
honest.
Yeah.
You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
Like,
this guy.
and
Yeah, no, this guy actually.
but there was more. There was a link though, like, and that's not to dispel the Larry Murphy
No,
thing.
because it's
Okay?
more than just that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
there was something else.
he did work in the he was working in Newbridge at the time. They know that, and then there was CCTV in the post office of a guy that looked like Larry Murphy.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how though. Back in the 90s, everybody had to go to the post office for something. Like it was much more of a busy place then.
Yeah.
Like so, it's hard to build a case that he was in a busy town and he visited the same post office that Deirdre did that day. He was like, I don't want to be defending Larry Murphy in any way, like, but
Yeah.
that's a bit flimsy in a sense, like. But no, although he is the main suspect, and then you go back to the story, I suppose. I think another prisoner did also say he overheard something, but that's hearsay. But
Yeah.
there was the story that Deirdre Jacobs' grandmother, his business card was handed in or was found after she died when they cleared out her shop. But I think Deirdre's mother came out and like kind of put this to bed. Like at the time, Larry Murphy, because he's a carpenter, but he's actually a master carpenter or something. So he can make like kids' toys and all this stuff with wood. So he was selling these toys at the time, and it was like in 1991 or something. And he would just like out his business card everywhere saying, I sell these toys, you want to sell them in your sweet shop. So his card would be in many sweet shops throughout the place. So Deirdre Jacobs, and then they never had any contact with him or bought toys from him or anything. So
Yeah.
that was all I think yeah.
I never thought of that. I actually never thought of that because if he was making kids' toys and stuff, most toy shops and sweet shops around the country would probably have some form of a communication for him because he would be trying to sell them on. Yeah, I never thought of that. There would have been
actually in the 90s you couldn't put them online, so that's how
true.
you
Yeah,
it,
that's how you did it. Like that, they used
yeah.
to go from shop to shop and contact, and you used to put the footwork in. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and he never done any construction work in the shop or out, and that was published before, but that because I think Mrs. Jacobs, she gave an interview to the Independent or the Times recently enough, like 2018 or something, and cleared this up. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So that there's and at the moment, to your knowledge, is he the only suspect in that, or is there possibly somebody else?
Well, I know there was one guy called John Creer was considered a suspect. He was a guy from Newbridge. He abducted a woman outside a hotel in Newbridge in 1979. The poor woman, her name Phyllis Murphy, and she was found strangled up in the mountains in the Wicklow Gap, I think it was, same Dublin Wicklow Mountains. And he didn't get arrested until like I think 1999 or 2000 or something, after Deirdre Jacob had gone missing anyway. And I think DNA evidence got him in the end, and then his alibi fell apart. But he lived in Newbridge and had abducted a woman before, so he was considered a suspect.
Okay, I didn't even know that. I know the Phyllis Murphy case. I don't remember, and I was not born at that particular stage, but it has been subject to one or two documentaries over the years. That's right. He was found off DNA nearly 20 years down the line. Okay, I didn't realize that.
21 years, I think, or 20 years, 20 years would have been, So,
okay.
And he lived in Newbridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, there's one case now. I know this case isn't really covered in a lot of the media reports, but it's a case that I kind of came across when I was researching, and it's from 2003. It's a woman called Claire Boylan. She was from Terranure, just literally right where Eva Brennan was from. And one day she left their parents' house. It was a Sunday she said she was going to visit her friend in Tullamore, but basically never showed up. And now she'd never prearranged this with her friend or anything. And that was the last anybody seen of her. And there was a few reported sightings that she was seen walking around the Terranure area a few weeks after she was reported missing and all this stuff, but it's hard to confirm them type of sightings because apparently she regularly went for walks, so it'd be hard for people to, if they're getting the correct date or whatever. But it's a very little known case, but very little on it. Actually, me and Mick, we did an episode on it, and Mick covered everything there was, but it was quite short because that's all there was. But she was from South Dublin. She was similar age to Eva Brennan, went missing, yeah, pretty much in the same place, and she's never been found. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question here. So we covered a lot, and there's a lot of these cases, if not all these cases, have got a suspect. Okay, but say in today's world, or even back then, how feasible would it be, do you think, to decide to disappear and leave without a trace off your own personal will? Is that possible?
Well, I suppose it is possible if you wanted to do it, because I actually know of a case, and he was a young guy. I think he was from Dublin, and he basically wanted to disappear, and his family knew he was in Manchester and all this, and they were sending communication to him and all, but no, they just couldn't actually ever locate him down. But in these cases, like the 7 we just went through, there was obviously Antoinette Smith and Patricia Doherty, their bodies were found, but there's no passports taken, anything like that, and their clothes were still at home. They were young, kind of planning their lives. It just makes no sense. And also, it would be quite a difficult thing to do as well. You'd have to have some sort of connections. Where would you begin? And in '93, where if you're just a normal person, whatever, not involved with any crime or anything like that, where would you what would be your first port of call? Because I think I suppose you'd go Britain and then try and go from there. But if you look at the cases and the victimology behind it, there's just nothing to suggest that they're running from anything, or maybe
you're absolutely right there. If you look at the backgrounds of all those people there, there's no link to there's no link to say, like you said, where do you go if you want a false passport? That is literally the criminal underworld. There's no link there to any of that they would even know.
No, it's not
where to begin.
You find it online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's passports are us, and local bar, nonsense that doesn't work.
Yeah, so you have to, and then not to be kind of sexist, but I suppose back then it would be even more difficult for a woman to make them sort of connections, wouldn't it? Also,
yeah.
Well,
something like that would have immediately, even in the underworld, a woman looking for a brand new passport would have immediately sent the ears up. Yeah, people would kind of go, "Oh, what's going on here?" And and had it been the case, it would have been fed back to the guards very quickly, because the guards all work off information. I said, once a crime is committed in Ireland, you guarantee the cops get phone calls from informants across. Immediately. So
everyone knows everyone in Ireland. Well, I'll tell you one thing: if they wanted to disappear, they're not going to do it in Ireland. You're never going to hide in Ireland if you're from here. It's someone in no time.
Very, very difficult to disappear in Ireland. So, to your knowledge, at this particular moment in time, from 1987 to 2003, no other women have gone missing, maybe in the same way as these 12 women have, or 11 women have.
No, see, that's what, when I first started researching the cases, I went back through records from 1970 up to I think it was 2017 or whenever I started researching. I couldn't really find a series this close together. That's what always baffled me. And I always remember, Barry Cummings. He's probably the best crime journalist.
Yes, Barry. Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, he actually, I should have mentioned, he's written a few books on the cases that I've read as well. Brilliant books. But he said one way to look at it is, if you have, say, whatever 12 to 16 cases or whatever, how broad you want to make it, it would have to be an individual, as in 16 separate men capable of killing a woman and hiding them. That seems more preposterous than saying that at least some of the cases must be linked.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's a lot. If you get what I mean, like so, like
yeah. No, that, like I mean that part makes perfect sense. Like in if when you have that many, could there be a link? I think is the word I would use there personally. I would use
yeah.
could there
And
be a
then
link?
also to make this to state the obvious, like there's definitely obviously there's more stuff the guards know than we know, like so
Yeah,
there has to be stuff behind the scenes, and like in fairness to the guards, they're not really an alarmist type of establishment, so I don't they're never going to come out and start saying unless it's definite, we have a serial killer or anything like
yeah,
that, especially back in the 90s.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it
Like you
was a
say,
relatively new phenomenon there back then as well. I mean, um, but a lot of it does tie into too. I remember 1994 was the Fred West case.
oh yeah, yeah.
And Rose West, I always go say Fred West. I should always put Rose in there as well.
Rose, yeah.
Yeah, no, she kind of gets away with the mention, but she what kind of I think what fumes a lot of this as well is that particular case. A lot of the women who were the victims in that particular event were women who had gone missing. They
Yeah.
disappeared. So it's not unfeasible that there could be something happening here in Ireland.
Oh yeah, it's very like it's possible because like a lot of you see like when you're kind of studying, you kind of come across these things like circumstantial sort of threads, I suppose, and they're just that's all. They're nothing you could ever base anything in court on or arrests or anything. But there'd be a lot of like stuff say around that. Something that popped up to me a lot was South Dublin. Like so, say Antoinette Smith from South
Yeah.
Dublin, if they're Patricia Doherty lived in South Dublin, Annie McCarrick did, Eva Brennan did, and Claire Boylan did. Now, that's 5 of the 7 cases that we went through without suspects known to the victims, and 5 connections there to South Dublin. And then another thing I kind of noticed that, like, say, Antoinette Smith, Patricia Doherty, Eva Brennan, and Claire Boylan were like kind of a bit older, about late 20s into their 30s, and they all had short hair. Just a little thing I came across that I thought was just kind of popped out at me. I was like, that's a bit strange, but they're just little circumstantial links, like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, they're circumstantial, but there are links, like in that sense. Okay.
the odd little
Um,
thing. Yeah.
so what's next for you now, Kieran? You've got your website, you got it up and going. Where are you bringing it? What do you want to do with
Well, I just kind of like as information comes in, I'll just kind of add to the cases or add to the write ups, and then just hopefully get more opportunities to do stuff like this, because like I'm really appreciative that you came on to and let me tell the thing like this, because like it's a very kind of complex thing, like where you're like, okay, there's 12 cases, but 5 of them have suspects, and we think 3 of them are definite suspects, and then so you have to take them away, and then and to try and pitch that to say like a TV show or anything, it's very difficult. Like
very
so,
different,
and
yeah. You nearly
even
need
then, like,
you nearly need 12 episodes. I mean, like even there, we could have very easily done an episode on each woman there now and just went
yeah,
through it and done 45 minutes, 50 minutes on it. So you're absolutely right. It's quite
yeah.
a
Like if you
huge
want to
amount.
do exactly, if you want to do a TV show, it would have to be probably 12, 30-minute shows, like, or you could do
Yeah,
one show on the 5 cases with the suspects and all that stuff. So you feel terrible, like to go, oh, I want to eliminate these 5 cases. Like it's a terrible thing to kind of do. Like so, I suppose next is hopefully to keep being able to do stuff like this, and just add to the blog. And if anyone wants to contact me or with ideas or anything like that or other cases, that would be great. And then just do some. I think I'm going to do some stuff more with Mick, with Mick Rooney as well. Like
yeah.
so, that's interesting.
So that's it for this episode of The Recluse's Cookbook. This also marks the end of Series 2. A big thank you to all my guests this season. That's Rob Faulkner, Anya Ryan, Richard Waters, Dave Sperling, Jonathan Trigg, Brian Matthews Murphy, Keith Fay, Tim Lone, Jessica Jeffrey, Mick Rooney, Eugene O'Brien, and of course Ciaran McConnell. Also, I can't forget your good selves who have tuned in over the past 12 weeks. The Recluse's Cookbook will return for a 3rd series. Slán leat agus gura maith agat.
splendid voice. In fact, I'd sing in opera if they'd give me my choice. I wrote to Oscar Hammerstein that I would be his star. He said, come down and sing for me, and I'll see how good you are. And I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. No, I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months. I sang the wise old owl, and he left the room at once. So I don't suppose I'll do it again for months and months and months.